Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. This is the SIG Network call for January 16th, 2025, our first real meeting of the year. Welcome, everybody. Like usual, we are subject to the CNCF Code of Conduct, so please be nice to each other, and this is recorded. So we are started in the KEP window. Really, it was open before, but officially it's open now. Some of us met last week to go over the KEP dashboard. We can take a look at it a little bit later. That is the number one priority is people who have KEPs open, make sure that you are getting them updated and appropriately marked for inclusion in the upcoming release, so that we don't get to the finish line only to find out that we forgot to do the paperwork and you're missing the boat and you have to catch the next one. That's the worst feeling in the world. Looking at triage, we usually start with triage. So I didn't do a lot of triage, but I did load some up. So let me share my screen. Window, this window, and can we see that? I can't hear anybody, but
yes, I can.
Cool. Awesome. There's only a few that are relatively recent, but I haven't had a moment to look at these. So if anybody has, please speak up. I see Antonio. I should just scroll to the bottom and look for Antonio first.
There is a related discussion about FIPS in general for Kubernetes, but this is a very specific request because in the endpoint controller, and I think that you did this code, Tim, there is a library that repack the endpoints and to get them in a consistent to get repack the endpoints to aggregate them and remove duplicates and return in a consistent order. And this library uses MD5 for hashing, and it seems that all these FIPS things that I'm not really an expert on that doesn't need that. So I don't know if it's as easy as changing the MD5 hashing by the SHA thing, or if it's related to the whole discussion that was linked there that SIGOS is leading.
So I remember writing that code, although I do not remember the details of it. And in hindsight, we probably should not have written that, but it is what it is. I think I just use MD5 as a quick way to take a hash, right? So any other hash function should work fine. Obviously, this is not security sensitive, but that doesn't help when you're linking against a FIPS implementation that panics when you hit MD5. Sorry, I can't tell if I'm infinity mirroring. I shouldn't do that. So in theory, we could just replace MD5 with any other hashing, I think. The concern I have is if it would change the ordering, then we may cause a whole lot of churning in clusters with large numbers of endpoints. So that's something we would need to think about. I'll assign myself this issue for triage, but I'm not going to have the time to act on it in the moment. So if anybody's interested in exploring this, help wanted. I'll add some notes here when we're done. That's one I did not have on my bingo card for this week. Kubeproxy cleanup issues. Dan, are you saying kubeproxy -- cleanup doesn't work reliably?
Dan is not.
Oh, Dan's not here?
He told me that this week he couldn't make it.
Okay. Cool. I think this seems reasonable. I think we all know that it doesn't work as well as it should. And if Dan wants to look at it, I'm fine with that. Okay. Test service not reachable within 2 minutes.
This is assigned to me. Yes, it's a flake in now teams set up jobs in Amazon, and the networking in AWS is completely different of GCE. And I think that it's time until we find the right knobs.
You think it's just cranking up the timeouts?
No, not about that. So in GCE everything is routable, or it's kind of a flat model, right? In
Right.
AWS you need to first you need to allow the instance to send traffic from internal IPs. They don't have the alias concept, right? They have a check that checks for source destination, and then they have another knobs there. So I don't know if it's a matter of some of these options that we need to tune that are specific to AWS, or it will take time. I have the people from COPS also adding other
Okay.
jobs so we can compare. I think that is more environmental than something
Okay. All right. I
internal.
will leave this for, or should I triage accept it? Okay. Long-lived TCP connections fail when downscaling kubeproxy with ETP cluster.
This refers to the work that you were doing with Alexander, but I don't have really clear from the description what is the problem. But it's about that. Some node is downscale and then the connection
Oh,
leaves hanging.
yeah.
So I don't know if it's the health checks or whatever. It's around the problems that you were exploring, Alexandru and you. If
Right.
people is familiar with load balancer, it's a good issue because
This
it
is
has.
it sounds like it's the issue where we don't actually know if a node is going away or not because we don't have any indication of that. We only know whether it is schedulable or not schedulable in the moment. All right, I'll add some notes to this. I'm not sure what to do with it, but I'll add some notes. Allow services to select only the latest backend pods.
We discussed this in a previous meeting, and
Oh, I must have missed that one.
no, you weren't. It was a meeting that was only a few of us, and Robert Scott was there and say that the current way of implementing this is not ideal, but solve the problem. It's about. I think that we ended in saying that it's about blue-green deployments, having two deployments and.
Yeah, I remember this one. I think the idea was something like Gateway API should handle this type of use case rather than a service. I think that's kind of what we had just landed on.
Okay, I missed the conversation. What does latest mean here? Like this is blue-green, but at what point in time do we evaluate what latest means?
I'm assuming what they're thinking is if there's two replica sets, one new one and one old one, when the new one exists, you use it, but then you might overload all the pods.
Yeah, if I have a replica set of 1,000 and I want to replace it with a replica set of 1,000, that replica set starts at 1. Do I immediately stop serving 1,000 endpoints and start serving 1, or do I wait until it's done? But I don't know what done means. There's no such concept, right?
They do say having, right. They say they're having two services. So I think the idea is there's going to be a service pointing at latest, fuzzy, whatever that means, and a service pointing at current. So they're trying to do a blue-green canary type rollout thing. But
they implement two selectors to split traffic. That way I understand. See the ASCII app.
And then there's two services listed in the little ASCII art.
This very much sounds like what exists in Gateway API with the multiple service backends, and you can kind of split between them.
Okay.
was what was wrong. Say exactly what we say.
So do we need someone to, or should we close it? Like, what's the resolution here?
Tim, you can assign this to me because we're going to be kind of looking into Gateway for L4, and I know that there's some proposals there, and maybe this will be covered by that because Gateway API already has those kind of constructs.
Okay. All right. You got it. Either close it or redirect it and mark it as triage accepted, or you know what to do. I assume this one was probably discussed at a previous meeting, but I haven't seen it. Yeah, okay. I'll respond to this one. This is not something we can fix. Yeah, okay. I will happily close that one. Boy, I wish I could get rid of service environment variables. This one, back to December 1st. Do we look at this before? No. Does anybody want to follow up with this to decide if it's triage or real or not? Nobody?
I can try to do that.
Who's that? Nadia?
Nadia, yeah.
What is your, I don't even know your GitHub. What's your GitHub?
NP Naiva.
There you are. Thank you. If it's not a real Kubernetes issue, feel free to say close. Awesome. Thank you. That's it. I loaded for triage, so I will stop my sharing and we'll go to agenda. Number one on the agenda is KEP review. So the folks who came to the KEP review session last week, do we have more to do? Do we want to review them as a group?
We missed one.
Okay. Which one?
The DNS environment downward API for the cluster domain.
Did you add it?
I think that I added. I was talking with Dan, but
I don't see it.
You don't see it.
DNS.
I think that I added it, but now I don't remember.
4969.
4969?
It's in
Yeah.
the.
Yeah, 4969 is not added.
It's not in the project?
No.
Okay,
If
I
you
saw
tag
that
it,
I added it.
I will share the table right now, and then you can add it and we can talk about it. Window, this window. Here. All right, so ignoring that one for a moment, let's look at the ones that we tagged for progress in 33. So multi-service CIDR looks to go GA in 33. NF tables looks to go GA in 33. Anybody stop me if you disagree or have questions. Topology aware routing, this is specifically the labels, the hints rather, looks to go GA in 33. Cube proxy improved ingress, that's cleanup in 33, so that's just removing old gate. Cube proxy component config got bumped from the last one, hoping to hit an alpha in 33. This one's weird because the KEP is sort of phrased in terms of going alpha, or at least it was. So anyway, moving forward with forward progress, there is a proposal on the table from SIG Arch basically that says if your config API like kube proxies has been alpha for multiple years, it's GA. Let's just call it GA, focus on making a V2 if you want to do better. I actually feel like we should probably embrace that. Dan's not here, so I can't talk. Is Damon here?
When is this proposal?
I think Ben made it for SIG Arch or something. And his point was basically, like, if we leave it in alpha for 3 years, it's de facto GA.
That's assuming that it's enabled, right, Tim? Like if you can't access it, then that's a different story.
I guess that's fair, yes. unfortunately, the kube proxy config is just something we've let languish because it's dirty and sort of unfun to work on. So we should look at that as this KEP moves forward. Kube proxy, let me make this window a little bit longer. Kube proxy version field. Dan thinks we can move the deprecation forward in 33. I need to look at that with the context of the new compat versions things, which makes the timelines longer. But if it was deprecated in 29, then it should be okay to do in 33. DNS search string validation. Adrian, we're moving forward to beta, yes?
Yep.
All right. Traffic distribution for services is shooting for GA. That's the prefer local heuristic. Although there are some modifications on the KEP that Dan proposed. So either we go GA and follow up with a secondary gate, or we postpone the GA.
I was talking with Dan this week because he couldn't make it, and I asked him for his feedback. His preference is to. He's not opinionated about going GA or not, but if he said that the naming, if we accept the new thing, we should change the name. I mean, if there are a preferred node thing, there should be a preferred node. I don't remember now. Preferred node local and whatever. It would say that if we move with two things, I think we should deambiguate despite leaving the old name.
Okay. I left myself a note. I need to go and read and offer my opinion on that too. Kubelet probes. So this is a huge proposal that probably should be like 5 separate proposals. Dan suggested that at least some of the sub proposals could be progressing to alpha in 33. I forget who was working on that. Nadia, was it you? Or was it Surya? It's Surya. Surya, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Do you want to mention that one? This is one that I wasn't super confident in our assessment.
I think the status is still uncommitted, but I'm trying to move some of the smaller bits into smaller KEPs, like what I can get with the SIG authn before, etc. So some parts of it might merge into 1.33. Yes, at least that's my aim.
Breaking it up seems like the most reasonable way to get real progress on it. I think there's a lot of good goals in there, but if you tie them all together, you'll never make forward movement.
Yeah, good point.
Okay, cool. Load balancer status improvements. Dan would like to push ahead in 33. And DRA resource claim standardized networking. Antonio and Lionel pushing forward to beta in 33. Okay. And IP CIDR validation improvements, Dan offered in 32, but we didn't really get around to thinking hard about, so we'd like to push it in 33. And proposal to deprecate V1 endpoints in 33. This is an interesting one. Did we discuss it in this group?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. Dan's not here, so maybe we should push it to the next one. But the short story is basically just put a deprecated in the documentation. Like that's the first step is just telling people, hey, this is deprecated and you probably shouldn't use it.
I think that we should not use the word deprecated because last time we added a deprecated to one field, there was one person from one company and all the bosses that reached out to explain them that deprecated doesn't mean that the field is going to be removed. It means that it's not going to evolve. Remember the load balancer IP in the service field?
Yes, I understand that people misunderstand what deprecated means, but it is the word that we use everywhere else in the project.
For saying that the field is not going to be removed?
I mean, we don't in general remove anything. Instead, we say this is deprecated, you shouldn't use it.
Dockershim and a lot of fields not, but tags.
Well, Dockershim is an implementation, not an API, right? Flags are governed entirely differently. Like the deprecation rules actually call out that flags are different from APIs.
What I'm trying to say is that I agree with you, but the impact on the world is something we should consider. That's what
Okay,
I'm
well, that's why we have the KEP process. So there will be a KEP that proposes very concrete action, and we can argue whether the word deprecated is good or not, or whether we return a warning that says this API has been obviated by endpoint slice. You really should be using endpoint slice instead of this, something like that. And that's it. That's our 33 roster. It's not small, but it's not huge. Did you add the new one, Antonio?
Yeah, I see in my, but it's at the bottom. It's the 59.
Oh,
No, 59, right?
59 what?
The row, 59 row.
Oh, row 59. Sorry.
I don't know. How can you?
Instrument downward here. There we go. Okay. So is there a concrete proposal?
So there are several things that I found in the CAP and that I was exploring, and there are hacky workarounds, right? One is that you can get the kubelet config through the proxy API. That I'm just explaining what exists, not what is the thing. There is other that you put the subdomain field in the pod, and then the pod gets the full codified domain. But then they have some weird interacting with some other fields like hostname as FKDN and whatever. So those options are really hacky and work. So I think that having it downward in the downward is really good. The problem is
I'm not against it. I'm not against it. It's just a matter of finding the right way to express it, because most of the downward API is like go read a field from this object and not like here's a magic word that you can use to get information.
Yeah, that's the contentious point, because the proposal says, oh, this cluster domain ref. And what I was saying is we can say that this cluster domain, but it's really a kubelet field. If some people start to use different domains in different kubelets, that breaks that assumption that value is consistent across the cluster.
That is also true. So that's what we have the KEP process for. Okay, so who's shepherding this KEP? You?
Yeah, I will.
You should assign yourself that KEP issue.
Okay, I will.
Antonio, I can help out here. Actually, this one is from like many years ago. I'm pretty sure that thing got closed.
I don't know. I think that if we figure out one name or property or something.
All right.
As I recall, there was stuck on this becomes a pattern for other things, which will
exactly.
That is.
I was just going to say exactly that. Everything we do sets a precedent, and if we set a precedent for an environment variable, then there will be 100 more environment variables that people want to add. And if we set a precedent for magic word in downward API, then there will be 100 more magic words that people want to add to downward API. And I'm not against it. I just want to be careful that we set the precedent that we're happy to do 100 more of.
Related to that, you were discussing something related with James Minueli and the people that wanted to do something about the songs. You remember that? They wanted to get the node song.
Yes, that KEP is still open. It's give me the node topology labels.
Yeah, that's one. But
so kind of there was a proposal, and I didn't really love the proposal. And then James Munnelly came back and said, "Here's a different way to do it," and then it missed the boat for 32. So they're going to try to bring it back for 33.
But are they also pushing for the downward API to leak the information to the pod?
This would be no. I think what James proposed actually was literally copy the topology labels from the node to the pod at binding time. When the scheduler schedules it, we know which node and we know which pod. We have all the information we need. Just copy those labels, and then it's not magical. It's just the labels are there now.
But what happens if the label already exists?
You just have to define the semantic. If it exists, then we don't overwrite it or something, right? Or maybe we do, but like we just need to decide and document what happens.
Okay.
I like it because it's really clean. I don't like it because it requires admission control. So that's the discussion. He's basically changing the bindings, the binding API from the scheduler. All right, let's move forward on agenda. We're at a halftime. Next topic, Antonio, demo optimizing Kubernetes DNS performance.
Yeah, but there are other topics that I don't know if you prefer to go first with the topics that are different and do the demo at the end, or I can do it.
Okay, if you want to pump yourself, then the next topic would be Linel new endpoint slice controller repository.
Yes, thanks. So this week we discussed with Antonio about the beta requirement for
Sorry,
the
you know, I can barely hear you. Anybody else?
oh, sorry.
Your volume is very low.
Can you hear me now?
Ah, much better.
Okay, wrong microphone, sorry.
I'm familiar with that problem. Go ahead.
Okay. So this week we discussed with Antonio about the beta requirement for the CAP 4817 about the resource claim status. And one of the things was this endpoint slash controller that will be utilizing the or consuming the IPs of the resource claim. So the idea would be to have a new repository for the endpoint slash controller that would be a generic endpoint slash controller that would be capable of getting the IPs of the pod IPs in the pod status, but also from this resource claim status. So this idea has been brought up already in the CAP 4770 about making the endpoint slash controller generic, and it got refused because there was no usage in Kubernetes, but maybe a new repo would be more helpful for this under Kubernetes SIGs. I think I received some message on Slack from some person from Cilium saying that it could be useful for them because they have their own implementation of the endpoint slash controller. So yeah, I'm bringing this topic in this meeting to get opinion and get feedbacks about it.
So I think that's a good idea because first, it's free. We don't lose anything or have any risk just creating the repo and iterating on the repo, because the alternative is to put these things in staging and make the staging more complicated, and also ties to Kubernetes release, and this gives us an easy way to iterate and experiment and learn from.
So we already have kates.io/endpoint slice as a repository. How is that? Is that not this?
But that's the staging. This
Yeah.
is about Kubernetes SIG endpoint slice controller or endpoint slice, multi-endpoint slice controller, whatever. It's to create a new endpoint slice controller that is able to work out of the cluster.
Would we use that from the in tree one, or would it be like two implementations that we keep in sync?
This will be vendoring the entry one plus adding the new functionality.
Oh, so it would be vendoring the one from staging and then extending
Right.
it. I
Right.
see. No objection.
Okay, that was good.
Okay. Anybody else has objections? Speak now.
We should just be a little careful on the naming, because if they're both called
Yeah.
endpoint slice controller, then it gets very confusing.
That's true. Okay. I imagine I'll see a proposal for a new Git repo come by. All right, next topic then. Sorry, are we done with this one? Is there more?
Nothing else, thanks.
Great. Next topic is from someone named Nolan, whom I don't know. Nolan, are you here?
Yes, I am. And I apologize. This may not be the correct forum, but SIG Cloud folks referred me here.
Please.
Yeah, so I just wanted to double check. I am working with the open source GCP cloud provider, and we've noticed since upgrading that we can no longer use private networks, air-gapped networks. due to a code change that's relying on label. And I'm not exactly sure if that label is supposed to be set by us, this GKE node pool subnet, or if that
Right.
somehow leaked out of the implementation.
It's a good question. I don't know the answer. Can you explain to me what air gap network means in a cloud? Like just no public egress?
Right. So the setup would be that there's no public egress, and we use a proxy to get to it, and it
Okay.
uses a proxy to get out.
Okay. And can you explain the failure mode? Like what's actually happening?
So when the cloud provider code looks to add nodes to a load balancer, an internal load balancer, it sees that this label and the pod cider field are missing. We're using OVN for the network, the CNI.
Okay.
Because neither of those are present, it does not add any of the nodes to the load balancer. And that load balancer is what the proxy is using.
Got it. Okay. I'm not familiar with that code path. That's the networking proper team. Bowie, do you have any further context, or do we just need to escalate this inside Google?
I think we need to fix it, is my assumption.
I'm
I will
assuming
send
that fixing
through.
it is the correct result.
Yeah.
But I don't know who to talk to. I mean, I don't.
It's going to
know
be
off the top of my head.
Basad internally, like
Okay.
that group.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go talk with them. Thanks for catching this. It indicates to me sort of a testing escape that we shouldn't have had. It's clearly not the intention to break people who are using cloud provider on open source GCP. Nolan, would you do me a favor? Are you on our Kubernetes Slack?
Yes, I am. And I actually pinged Bowie on in the SIG, or let me get the right channel name, the GCP cloud provider channel.
Excellent. Cool. That's what I wanted to make sure, is that we have direct contact so we can follow up and get any more information if we need it.
Yep. I'm NRB there if anyone needs to get me.
Awesome. Thank
Don't
you so much.
hesitate to also DM me. Sometimes I don't see those like big group chat messages. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Will do.
Yeah, give us a little time to figure out what's going on, and then we'll hopefully have something.
Sure thing. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Okay, Antonio, the floor is yours.
Okay, let me present. You need to give me permission.
Oh, 1 second. Where'd you go? Here, participants, and where are you? There you are. More. Make co-host. Yes. Good. You're good to go.
Okay. What can I share here? You know, first this one. Share. No, share no. Slideshow. Okay. Now, are you seeing my screen or?
Yes.
Okay. So this is like in December, I think that we were talking about an issue about DNS, and in Christmas I have time that I dedicated to do my own things, and I was starting to think more about this problem, right? What is the problem of DNS in Kubernetes? So all the discovery of services is built on top of DNS. The way that it's implemented is using the search domains that just you add the different levels of domain. So when you request something, the system starts to autocomplete the record until it finds the right record. And in addition, with dual stack, there is this protocol, or I don't know if it's a protocol, it's an RPC for sure, that asks the resolvers to send two queries at the same time to raise. The first one wins, and it's how the IP family of the request is decided. The consequence of this implementation is that you have multiple queries that happen at the same time, and this increases the latency, right? The more queries that you do, you need to also, the queries are sent serially, so you need to wait for one to finish to send the other. Then the other problem is that you send a lot of queries and you have a multiply problem. Every query is an independent UDP connection, so it creates a contract entry. And DNS is very verbose. On these systems, it can create contract exhaustion. And the other problem is that this means that more queries need more CPU process by the DNS servers, and this is on cloud providers is direct cost on the users that they need to deploy or more scale out or scale up the DNS servers. Okay, I have a thing. Let's go with the first post. Okay, so basically it's when I have a TCP dump, and then we do if we do this one, okay, this is not getting what I want. Because it wasn't sniffing. You see that I send one query, 2 queries, and I got 2 answers, only one family. So this is the happy case. If I take the unhappy case, okay, let me stop, scroll up. You see that one query generated. For most of you, this is basic, but it's just for completeness of the presentation. You see that I generated 1, 2, 2 answers, 1, 2 on the 2 answers, and this goes. I don't remember how many of them. There are a lot of them here. Well, you can see that just for one query, there are a lot of entries. If we see the flows, you can see that every time that I request, the contract entries keep growing. If I request a lot of them in serial, you see that I exhausted 631 flows in less than 1 second or something like that. Okay, so now back to the presentation. So what is the solution? These are not. So there are 2 problems, right? Is the latency that we want to solve, and the common solution for latency is caching, right? We store the queries, and if a new query comes, we don't go up to the Austin server and down. We need to be careful about the DNS has TTLs, and also in Kubernetes is common the services and everything to change quickly, so we cannot keep the entries for too much time. And the other thing is, if you have a lot of records, this is going to consume memory in the local cache, and it can create problems in the node where you're caching. What is the other solution? For sending too much queries, if there is no cache, you still need to send the request to the upstream server, and this means you are forwarding DNS, and you still have the problems of the lot of entries. So a common solution for this is pipelining. So DNS allows to connect via TCP. So you can create an upstream connection via TCP, and in the node, cache instead of caching, just sending upstream pipelining all the requests to the same connection. This way, you can simplify the number of connections. And the last requirement for this solution is that it has to have guardrails. We are doing a lot of things with the DNS request, and if something goes wrong, because with DNS something is going to be wrong always, we need to fail in a way that the application doesn't fail. And this is now how I implemented it. Let me show. I had a lot of fun with this. Yeah,
Antonio's idea of fun is different from most people.
Then, are you seeing
And
my
that's coming
screen?
from me.
Yeah, you used to be guinea pig and a lot of these things, so you know more. You are seeing the screen or not?
No, I haven't seen this demo. I'm just saying I
No,
know
but now
I'm
screen sharing my.
Oh yeah, we can see your screen. I mean, it's
Okay.
it's big on the bottom.
Oh, maybe I need to. Okay.
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay, this is the Kubernetes thing. And now we are going to wait for the deployments to happen. What are the Kainet posts? Okay, now it's working. Okay, now I'm going to send the same request and magic had to happen. You see, I only get 18 flows for TCP and 0 flows for UDP. Let me do it again because it's so cool.
So Antonio, I'm assuming you're going to go into what's happening.
Yeah, what did
Yeah,
you
I
change
did.
to make it magic?
That's the last part.
Show the magic.
That's the last part, and now it only, you see, only 18 flows. I sent like 1 million flows with one tool, DNS per thing, like something, and I was so happy. So I need to. Okay, where is the presentation? I lost my presentation. What do I have now?
We see your slides.
Okay. Now you see the. Sorry,
Yep.
Okay, so this is what is happening. This doesn't have the tooling that I can show the marker, right? I don't have a marker. Okay. What is happening is, you see my course? Okay, the packet comes here. So we don't want contract we don't want to hit contract. The moment that we hit contract, we create the entry. So we capture the packet here. We have two options here. You can use tproxy that redirect the full packet for the socket, and that's why my initial implementation. But that has the problem that if something goes wrong with the process that do the caching, that breaks the connection. So what I use it is the same thing that I use it for the network policy, the NFQ. So at this point, this packet is diverted to user space, and in user space, the logic is as simple as take the packet, well, you deserialize the packet and check the cache. If the cache is there, reply. And then in the NFQ, you say drop the packet. So because it's UDP, that's no problem. So you drop the packet that was going to the DNS server, and you answer with the IP of the DNS server. You need to bind with the socket, Sol IP transparent, and some of these magic options that Linux have, and then you make that happen. So the path of the packet is from the pod to the raw, and from the raw to the pod.
So you're spoofing the DNS
Yes.
server inside your node.
Exactly.
That's not terrifying.
Yeah, that's then what happens if it's not in the cache? Then you get a connection pool of TCP against the DNS server. This is tricky to implement, but the code is not so complex. Then it opens a new connection if there is no connection, and then you get the DNS records and you pipeline the records through the string of TCP. The good thing is that, as you see, you just need to create one or two connections, and you are able to send. I was doing tests. I don't know if I would able to send 10,000 requests per TCP connection in less than 1 second or something like that. And okay, then you get the reply. If the reply succeeds, you respond spoofing the IP and drop the packet. If something happens during this process, you are not able to send the TCP connection, you are not able to understand the DNS record, the DNS streaming phase, or whatever, you allow the packet to go through. So it's super solid in that sense that has a lot of guardrails. And well, that's it.
That's it. Bowie, you're first.
So this is kind of interesting because no local DNS captures in the raw. I understand that probably some implementation aspects of no local DNS are not ideal, but no local DNS intercepts in the raw, skips contract, does the caching, and then I think we used to convert it to TCP to go upstream.
I'm not inventing anything. That's based on
No, what I'm
I
saying
learned
is
from
that
the internal teams.
yeah. Unfortunately, we had to disable the TCP conversion because we found it was not compatible widely. But that's something that I think we have to dig into.
That's I was involved in that. The main problem that there was with the TCP connection is that the servers used to have a limit on the number of TCP connections. So, for example, DNS mask has a limit of 20 TCP connections, and Damien from the internal team in Warsaw sent a patch to make this configurable because TCP is super expensive for that. There is a RFC that allows to implement this in a more how can I say with the what's the name of the DNS options? EDN0 thing. They have an option to implement. Yeah, so they have some RFCs or something to improve this. But you are completely right. The existing DNS servers and tooling are not prepared for this mode, and you deal and dealing with problems of not being able to accept TCP, and we are failures. That's why I removed the tproxy implementation and using this. You have a problem, the packet goes through as if nothing happened. You are just holding the packet until you are able to decide if you are able to answer or not. And if you are not able, you give up and you let the packet go their way.
Do you remember that decision for future packets of the same connection of the same 5 tuple or something?
You are asking for a feature request, right?
No, I'm not. No, I mean, it seems like this is the sort of thing that the node local DNS should handle, and we shouldn't like. I don't know what part of this the node local DNS doesn't do or shouldn't do. I wanted to say, for the record, just for historical context, when we first added DNS to Kubernetes, it was in the add-ons directory as an example of an integration you could do between Kubernetes services and a service discovery mechanism, with the assumption that DNS was a terrible service discovery mechanism, and so people would find other better ways of doing service discovery that weren't DNS. And nothing lasts as long as a quick hack. So that has survived 11 years now almost, and has become this assumed thing that has to work, which makes me uncomfortable because we all know how much DNS is awesome. A while back, I started a doc with an idea of like, hey, the DNS schema that we sketched out didn't have a whole lot of thought put into it. And maybe we should rethink things like ndots5 and come up with a more reasonable DNS schema and find a way for people to be able to opt into it, like on a per pod basis. So like, what if the DNS server offered 2 different simultaneous ways of getting the same answers, but one of them wasn't insane? Could we convince people to do that? And then that was as far as it went. I started a doc, just started, did not finish, and didn't have the bandwidth to complete it. And it wasn't at the time urgent, so I didn't get around to it. But I still have the doc somewhere, and I still think it's a good idea. Like, so I put this out here for the people here in the room and for the recording. If there was somebody who felt like they wanted to tackle a really hard problem, but could have very lasting impact, I think the way we do DNS is terrible and we should rethink it. And it would need somebody who is willing to spend a significant amount of time thinking about the transition plans and how to make it work. But I totally think it's achievable. I just think it's, long and tedious. So if there was any such masochist who's watching the recording of this video, drop me a note on Slack or somewhere, and I'd be happy to share my thoughts.
And I would love to be involved if someone is going to move this forward, being one of the years ago working on DNS. I think the key learning is glibc and resolve.conf should not be part of your DNS solution. At least we should try to avoid it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because it was the easy path, like the multi-cluster SIG, when they described multi-cluster services, I mean, I say they, but like I was involved, it followed the same basic schema because changing it would have been more complicated than just running with what exists. The devil you know sort of argument. So again, if anybody wants to work on this, there's opportunity for lots of lasting impact.
gRPC was trying to do something similar, right? They have a discovery thing.
I don't mean replace it with a different discovery mechanism. I just mean make us use DNS in less of a terrible way.
But it's already broken from the origin, right? You see the resolvers, the glibc and muslc, or how do you pronounce it? And the happy eyeball thing is already nuts. You send two records, they race, you get the family from the one that wins the race.
But like we can't fix every problem in our industry. So like if happy eyeballs is the sort of established norm, we could stop amplifying every DNS query into a DOS on the DNS server.
So to your point, is your talk about something new or about fixing the existing?
It was about fixing the way we build DNS in Kubernetes. There's a number of problems, and at the end of it all is, and we shouldn't be setting n.5. We should not have as many search path options. We should have a much more reasonable way of using DNS that is more normal. So at least the problems you have with DNS would be the normal problems and not frickin' Kubernetes problems.
Okay, so it's about the how Kubernetes abuse DNS, not about the DNS.
Right. I mean, at some point we tried describing like, what if we had an eDNS extension that lets you do server-side expansion of search paths? And like that was really creative, but it would require an enormous amount of shift in the industry. Whereas my approach was like, that's crazy. Let's just fix the way we do DNS. You shouldn't need 5 search path expansions to do things.
Who came up with that?
That was probably me.
Yeah, but
It seemed reasonable at the time. And again, it was a demo. It was like, hey, look what you can do with DNS. Isn't this cool? And then it just sort of got away from me.
But Docker, I don't remember Docker using this thing, right? They were much more into the environment variables and this Fortnite and whatever.
They were, and then they built a DNS server into Docker-D. And
Yeah, talk Benjamin about that.
Yeah, so they've had their own path of exploring how to abuse DNS.
Well,
I see we're at time. Thank you for the demo, Antonio. Anybody else have questions? Okay. One last reminder then, it is the KEP cycle. If you are working on KEPs, now is the time. Please front load that work as much as you can. Get the changes to your KEP documents into the queue ASAP. If you need PRR, ping the PRR people and see if you can get them engaged early so they can spread out some of the load. They tend to get crushed in the last, just absolutely destroyed in the last 2 weeks. So if you can front load it and say, look, my thing's ready for PRR now, whenever you've got a moment, that's great. KEPs that need me, send them to me or ping me on Slack. I have a lot in my queue already, so I will be getting to them in the next week or 10 days. Anybody else? All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you all in a few weeks.
Bye.